I was still holding Grandma Rosa's hand when Jake leaned in behind me and whispered, "Get your bag. We're leaving. Act like nothing's wrong." At first I thought he was joking. His voice was soft to calm. But when I looked up at his face, saw something I had never seen in the 7 years we'd been married. Fear not the kind you fake when you hear a loud noise or jump at a horror movie. This was deep, alert, calculating fear. The kind that makes your body go cold before your brain even catches up. I blinked at him, confused. "What?" I mouthed. He didn't answer, just gave me the faintest shake of his head and a small, forced smile. Then he stepped back, his hand brushing mine so lightly no one else noticed. It was our signal, the one we used when we needed to escape a conversation politely. I had no idea why he was using it now, dot all around us. People were laughing, eating cake, clapping as Sierra gave her over-the-top speech about how none of this would be possible without Dad's planning. Balloons floated above the patio, music buzzed from a portable speaker. And Grandma in her favorite blue shawl smiled quietly in her chair like a queen watching her court. I should have been happy. I wanted to be happy. But Jake's whisper still rang in my ears. "Act like nothing's wrong." I slowly stood and gave Grandma's shoulder a gentle squeeze. "Bathroom," I whispered with a smile. She nodded, still clapping along with everyone else. Jake and I slipped casually through the crowd. I forced myself to nod at people as we passed, even laughed when someone joked, "You two sneaking off for wine, huh?" Jake chuckled back. "You know us." We entered the house through the sliding door. The moment it clicked shut behind us, Jake grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but enough to make it clear we weren't stopping. "Jake, what's going on?" I asked, trying to sound calm even though my pulse had spiked. "You're scaring me. Just trust me," he said. "I'll explain in the car." He pulled me toward the front hallway where our things were left earlier. He handed me my purse and phone, scanning the corners with darting eyes. The house was too quiet inside, muffled compared to the noise outside, and every step echoed faintly against the polished wood floor. When we stepped out the front door, the sun was still out. Kids ran across the lawn. Laughter floated from the backyard. Everything looked normal, but it didn't feel normal anymore. Jake unlocked the car with a beep, opened my door, and waited until I slid in before walking around to the driver's side. He started the engine, locked all the doors with one sharp click, and just sat there. Eyes fixed on the rearview mirror, body stiffed up. Then, slowly, he turned to me. "Something's very, very wrong." My mouth went dry. "What are you talking about?" "It's just a birthday party." "What's going on?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. He didn't show me the screen. He just said, "I'll explain in a minute, but I need you to trust me right now, okay? Don't panic. Just sit tight." I turned my head toward the house. Through the car window, I saw Sierra standing alone near the back door. Her smile was gone. She wasn't waving goodbye. She was just watching us. Watching like she knew we weren't supposed to leave. And that's when I knew Jake wasn't being dramatic. Something was really wrong. If you're confused, don't worry. So was I, but everything was about to unravel. And it all started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. It had been a quiet Sunday afternoon a week earlier when my phone buzzed across the counter. My dad's name lit the screen. I hesitated. We hadn't spoken much in years, not because of some big fight, but because every conversation left me feeling smaller, like I didn't belong in his version of family. Still, curiosity got the better of me. "Hi, Dad." "Maya," he said, his voice unusually cheerful. "How are you, sweetheart?" Immediately, I was on alert. My father rarely called unless he wanted something. "I'm okay." "What's going on?" He chuckled. "Well, I wanted to talk to you about something important. Your grandmother's birthday is coming up. Her 85th. Can you believe it?" Of course I could. Grandma Rose was sharper than most people half her age. But I stayed quiet, waiting for the catch. "We're planning a surprise party," he continued. "Big gathering, decorations, cake, all of it. Your sister's helping organize it, and we thought it would be really nice if you came too." That made me pause. Sierra and I hadn't been close since we were teenagers. She always treated life like a competition, and I was the opponent. Still, I couldn't ignore Grandma's birthday. That woman had done more for me than both of my parents combined. Of course, I said, surprising myself. I'd love to be there. Wonderful, Dad said warmly. It'll mean the world to her. We hung up after he gave me the details, date, location, and the part that made me hesitate. The party would be held at our old family home, the house I hadn't stepped into for nearly 10 years. When I told Jake that evening, he looked thoughtful. Your dad invited you. Yes, I said. I know it's weird, but I can't miss Grandma's 85th. She practically raised me. Jake nodded slowly, but didn't look convinced. And Sierra's involved too. Yeah. Why? He leaned back in his chair, sighing. I don't know. It just feels sudden, like they're trying too hard to make it sound perfect. I knew where he was coming from. My dad and sister were never the warm family dinner type. But still, Grandma Rose deserved to be celebrated. Maybe, just maybe, they were trying to patch things up. People change, right? Jake agreed to come with me, though I could tell it was more to support me than excitement. He even booked a small hotel nearby in case we needed space after the party. The week leading up to the trip felt strange. I kept imagining walking back into that house, my old bedroom. The creaky porch where I used to sit with Grandma, drinking lemonade. Each memory carried a weird mix of nostalgia and unease. The day we left, Jake double-checked everything. Car tires, GPS, chargers. He was always careful, but this time he seemed extra focused. I brushed it off as him being overprotective. The drive took 6 hours. We played music, shared snacks, tried to keep things light. Jake asked questions about my childhood. I told him the good parts, Grandma sneaking me cookies when Dad said no, blanket forts in the living room. I didn't talk about Sierra or Dad. Some memories are better left in boxes. When we finally pulled into the driveway, it was like stepping into a memory frozen in time. The same white shutters, the same faded welcome mat. But everything felt staged. The lawn was perfectly trimmed, balloons tied to every post. A banner reading Happy 85th Rose stretched above the garage. Dad greeted us with a big smile and open arms. There she is! My girl Sierra appeared beside him, holding a clipboard, her lipstick flawless. She gave me an air kiss. We're so glad you made it, Maya. Really? I muttered under my breath. Jake stood beside me, his grip on my hand just a little too tight. He didn't say anything, but I felt it too. Something about this didn't feel right. The moment we stepped inside, I felt it stronger. Not warmth, not comfort, just something strange. Off. The living room looked exactly how I remembered it, only to perfect, like a replica from a magazine. The rug I used to lay on was gone. The walls freshly painted. And yet there was a chill in the air, like the house was holding its breath. Jake noticed too. His eyes scanned corners. His fingers tapped restlessly against his leg. He was in observation mode. Looks nice, I said softly. Looks staged, he murmured back. I swallowed. He was right. The kitchen smelled of cinnamon and polished wood, but the air felt heavier than it should have. Every time I tried to shake the thought that this was just a normal birthday party, something in the corner of my mind whispered otherwise. Jake's hand brushed mine when no one was looking. His thumb pressed lightly against my knuckle. A silent message. Stay alert. I didn't know yet what he'd seen, but I trusted that look in his eyes. It was the same one he wore whenever he sensed trouble, long before anyone else noticed. We sat down at the long dining table as Sierra's voice rang out, calling for attention. She loved an audience, always had. With her sleek dress and rehearsed smile, she looked like she belonged at a political fundraiser, not a family birthday. Dad stood beside her, hands folded behind his back, nodding approvingly at everything she said. Grandma Rose sat at the head of the table, wrapped in her shawl, eyes half closed but alert in her own quiet way. She didn't speak much, but when she glanced at me, I caught something in her expression, flicker of recognition or maybe warning. She patted my hand softly when I leaned close to kiss her cheek. Her skin felt colder than it should have. Dinner stretched on with carefully prepared courses, each one carried out by men I didn't recognize. They weren't hired caterers, at least. Not the kind you'd expect. Too stiff. Too focused. When Jake excused himself and disappeared for 10 minutes, I tried not to fidget. When he returned, his jaw was tight. But he didn't say a word. He just slipped back into his seat, smiling at a joke Vanessa made. Later, when I touched his arm under the table, his hand trembled once before steadying. The first real crack appeared when Grandma Rose tried to speak during dessert. Sierra had just raised her glass, thanking everyone for attending, when Grandma whispered something. No one reacted. I leaned closer, straining to hear. "Don't let them," she said before coughing. I froze. Sierra clapped her hands loudly, drawing the room's attention away. Two of the men I didn't know moved closer to Grandma, adjusting her shawl, forcing a smile. Jake's eyes locked on mine across the table. He'd heard it too. After cake, Sierra insisted on gifts. Each one felt rehearsed, chosen to make the giver look good rather than please Grandma. Then came the oddest one. A sealed envelope handed to Sierra by one of the strangers. She tucked it away without showing anyone. Dad caught me watching and smiled too warmly, as though daring me to ask. Jake excused himself again, this time tugging at his phone like he was checking messages. I waited a minute before slipping away too, saying I needed the restroom. I found him in the hallway near the study, his phone angled discreetly as he snapped photos of something on the desk. "What are you doing?" I hissed. He didn't answer, just turned the phone screen toward me. Documents, legal papers with Grandma's name on them. Signatures shaky, but dated only last week. "She didn't sign these," Jake whispered. "They're setting her up." My chest tightened. Setting her up for what? Power of attorney? Guardianship? It looks like they're trying to prove she's incompetent. But it doesn't add up. They're forging it, Maya. A floorboard creaked behind us. Jake slipped his phone back into his jacket, and we both turned just as one of the stiff men stepped into view. He smiled politely. Too politely. "Everything all right?" Jake nodded smoothly. "Just looking for the bathroom." The man didn't move aside. "It's that way," he said, pointing back toward the dining room. His eyes lingered on me a moment too long before he stepped back into the shadows. Jake grabbed my hand and led me quickly toward the door. We rejoined the crowd, forcing smiles. The music was louder now, laughter echoing off the walls, but beneath it all was a hum of tension I couldn't ignore. Jake leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. "We leave soon. Stay calm." Grandma Rose caught my eye again. She mouthed something silently. I thought it was help. My stomach flipped. The rest of the night passed in fragments, clinking glasses. Sierra's booming laugh, Dad telling old stories that sounded false, even when they were true. Jake never let go of my hand. He kept scanning exits, watching reflections in windows. When it was finally late enough to excuse ourselves, he stood with deliberate calm and thanked everyone. Sierra raised her eyebrows but said nothing, though her eyes followed us as we walked toward the front door. Once we were outside, the air felt different, lighter but charged. Jake opened the car door, his smile pasted on for anyone who might be watching from inside. The moment the doors shut and the locks clicked, he dropped the act. "We're leaving. Don't look back." "No." I couldn't help it. Sierra was standing at the window, her silhouette framed by the curtains. She wasn't smiling anymore. She was just watching. We pulled out of the driveway slowly, headlights cutting across the lawn. Jake's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "They've already drugged her once, Maya," he said finally. "Those documents, they're trying to take everything. And if Grandma fights back..." He trailed off. I didn't need him to finish. I knew what he meant. My phone buzzed in, my purse. A new message. I pulled it out, heart thudding when I saw the sender, Sierra. "Why did you leave?" It read. Jake pressed harder on the gas. The road stretched dark ahead of us, and the house shrank in the mirror, but the feeling in my chest only grew heavier. We weren't safe yet. Not even close. The message from Sierra glowed on the phone screen, a simple question that carried the weight of a threat. "Why did you leave?" I stared at it, my throat tightening, until Jake reached over and pressed the phone gently down into my lap. His eyes never left the road. "Don't answer," he said. Not yet. The car moved fast through the empty streets. Streetlights flickered against the windshield, each one making Jake's face look harsher, sharper. I kept glancing into the rearview mirror, half expecting headlights to appear behind us. For a while, the road stayed dark. But my pulse didn't slow. "What if she knows where we're going?" I asked. My voice cracked despite my effort to sound calm. "She doesn't," Jake said, though I could tell he was trying to convince himself as much as me. "We'll go to the hotel first. Sort through everything there. And Grandma?" The thought of her still sitting in that chair whispering for help burned in my chest. Jake's grip tightened on the wheel. "We can't save her tonight. Not yet. If we push too soon, they'll bury everything. We need proof." The hotel was 15 minutes away, though it felt longer. When we finally pulled into the dimly lit lot, Jake parked at the far edge, away from the entrance. He killed the lights but left the engine running for a moment, scanning the lot. Only when he seemed satisfied did he shut it off. Inside the room, the first thing he did was lock every bolt and pull the curtains tight. He dropped his phone, keys, and wallet onto the table, then pulled the small black flash drive from his pocket. "This," he said, "is why I needed to get into that study." He slid it into his laptop. The screen filled with scanned documents, folders labeled with dates and names. I leaned closer, my heart racing as I read them. Power of attorney forms, bank statements, medical reports with Grandma's name, all with shaky signatures and timestamps that didn't make sense. "She's not incompetent," I whispered. "She's not there manufacturing it," Jake cut in. His voice was low but steady. "They're building a case to take everything. Once it's filed, she won't have a choice." My phone buzzed again. Another message from Sierra. "Come back before it's too late." Jake looked at it, his jaw tightening. "She knows we found something." I sank into the chair, hugging myself. "So what now? We just wait." "No," he said firmly. "We go to the police first thing in the morning. With this evidence, they can't ignore us." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe the system would protect Grandma. But Sierra's words haunted me. Before it's too late, sleep was impossible. Every sound outside the hotel room made me jump. Once, I swore I saw a shadow pass the curtain. Jake stayed awake with me, scrolling through the files, taking notes, building a timeline. By dawn, we had a binder full of evidence. It didn't make me feel safer. The police station was small, just a squat brick building with faded lettering. Inside, the officer at the desk listened politely as Jake explained. When we handed over the binder, his expression shifted. He excused himself, disappearing into the back. Minutes stretched long. Finally, a detective came out, introducing himself as Harris. He flipped through the pages, nodding slowly. "This is serious," Harris said. "If what you're saying is true, your grandmother's in danger. We'll need to act quickly." Relief washed through me so suddenly I almost cried. Finally, someone believed us. But Harris's tone shifted. "We'll send a team to the house today. You'll come with us, show us exactly what you found." Jake hesitated. "That's fine, but you need to be careful. They've staged everything. If they suspect we're onto them, we know how to handle it." Harris interrupted with a reassuring smile. Too reassuring. It reminded me of Dad's smile at the party. My stomach knotted. We drove back in a convoy-hour car following 2 unmarked police vehicles. My hand shook the whole way. I kept picturing Grandma's face, pale and small in her shawl, whispering that single word, "Help." When the house came into view, I gasped. It looked normal. Too normal. Cars lined the driveway neatly. Balloons still floated above the garage. Through the front windows, I saw Sierra laughing with a group of guests, champagne in hand. Music played faintly. Like the party had never ended. The police knocked on the door. Dad answered, smiling warmly, as though nothing in the world could be wrong. "Officers," he said. "What a surprise." Come in, come in. We're just celebrating Mother's birthday." Inside, everything gleamed. The dining table was spotless, no papers or binders in sight. Grandma sat in her chair, but her eyes looked glazed, distant. She didn't react when I rushed to her side. "Grandma," I whispered, gripping her hand. It was colder than before. Harris frowned, flipping through his notes. "Where are the men you mentioned?" "What men?" Dad asked innocently. "Just family here." I turned, scanning the room. The strangers were gone. Every trace of them had vanished. No envelopes, no shadows in the hall. Just laughter, music, and Sierra's perfect smile. Jake's hand brushed mine again, his voice low. They knew we were coming. For the first time, I wondered if someone in that convoy had told them. The officers didn't linger long. After their brief sweep, after the polite but hollow assurances, after Sierra's syrupy smile and Dad's righteous indignation, they left the house with nothing but a few notepads filled with half-believed statements. Their cars rolled back down the driveway, lights fading into the night. Jake and I stood in the silence they left behind, the walls of my childhood home pressing in closer with every second. Grandma was upstairs now, supposedly resting. Sierra had insisted she was tired, that all this fuss was too much for an old woman. But the way she'd said it, like she wanted her tucked away. Out of sight, set every nerve in my body on edge. Jake's hand brushed mine, subtle, grounding. "We're not done," he whispered, and I knew he was right. Leaving now would mean letting them win, letting the lies bury Grandma alive. But staying meant plunging deeper into whatever twisted scheme my family had woven. And still, I couldn't walk away. The hours that followed were a blur of whispered plans and tense waiting. Jake prowled the house like a hunter, noting doors that locked from the outside. The 2 clean kitchen drawers where the sedatives had been. The subtle hum of hidden devices still transmitting somewhere unseen. Sierra floated in and out, feigning cheer, her eyes sharp when she thought no one was watching. Dad lingered nearby, always within earshot, as though afraid of what we might stumble on if left alone. Every word out of their mouths was sugar-coated poison. Every smile a mask. I felt like a child again, unseen, unheard, except by Grandma. It wasn't until after midnight that the real cracks began to show. I slipped away from Jake, up the narrow staircase that groaned beneath my feet, and crept into Grandma's room. The sight stopped me cold. She was propped against the pillows, eyes half-lidded, her shawl draped carelessly across her lap. But when her gaze found me, it sharpened just for a moment before softening again into the fog-dazed Sierra had been parading in front of everyone. "Grandma," I whispered, kneeling beside her bed. Her hand trembled as it found mine. "They think I don't know," she breathed, her voice paper-thin but steady. "They think I can't hear. But I see them, Maya. I know what they want." My throat tightened. "Then we'll stop them," I promised. "I won't let them take you." Her fingers gripped mine weakly, a flicker of her old strength. "Be careful," she said. "They've planned this too long to let it slip away." Before I could answer, the floor creaked in the hall. I turned just as Sierra's shadow stretched across the doorway. She leaned there, arms crossed, her smile venomous. "You really shouldn't tire her out," she said sweetly. Doctor's orders. That night bled into a maze of lies. Confrontations barely hidden under politeness. And secrets Jake kept sliding into his pocket in the form of photos, recordings, scraps of evidence that painted a clearer picture with every passing hour. And finally, when dawn edged pale light across the curtains, the storm broke. Voices rose. Papers were dragged into the open. Forged signatures. Hidden bank statements. The truth Sierra and Dad had worked so hard to bury came spilling out into the light, damned with it. Their fury. The fight was not with fists, but with words sharp enough to cut. With accusations flung across the living room like knives. With Sierra's composure cracking into shrieks and Dad's mask falling into raw desperation. Jake stood like a wall beside me, evidence in hand. His calm presence, the anchor that kept me from drowning. And Grandma Frail, trembling but fiercely awake, found her voice at last. She spoke, and the weight of her words silenced the chaos. You will not take what is mine, she declared, her voice shaking but unbroken. Not my house, not my name, not my blood. By the time the police returned, this time with warrants, with paramedics, with sharp-eyed determination, the damage was already done. Sierra's defiance collapsed into sobs. Dad's anger drained into hollow resignation. They were led away in silence, their carefully built scheme unraveling thread by thread. And I stood there, clutching Grandma's hand, knowing that the fight had been more than just about her estate. It had been about truth, about the kind of love that endures betrayal, about finally breaking free of the shadows that had haunted this house for years later. In the sterile calm of a hospital room, Grandma squeezed my hand again. "You came back for me," she whispered, her eyes clear for the first time in days. "Always," I said, tears spilling freely now. Jake stood at the foot of the bed, exhausted but smiling. And for the first time since the nightmare began, I let myself believe we were safe. But even then, a part of me knew the story wasn't over. Because families like mine don't let go so easily. And shadows have long memories.